My presentation is about child labor laws and the way it has changed over the years in the union's involvement. Did you realize that in 1800s and early 1900s our country had a form of child slavery? In the early 1800s, 1/3 of the workforce in U.S. factories was made up of children between the ages of 7 and 12. Here's a photo of two boys working in a thread mill in Macon, Georgia. They were often too short to be able to reach the bobbins, so they had to climb up on the machines to change the bobbins and thread when they needed to. Here is a 12-year-old little girl named Addie Card working in the North Pommel Mill in Vermont. This photo was taken in 1908. It was on a cold December night, and children were going to work at a Whitnall cotton mill in North Carolina to work a 12-hour shift. This is a picture of young boys working the night shift at a glassworks mill in Indiana. This photo shows young boys working in a coal factory in Pennsylvania. The coal dust would get in their eyes and lungs and cause many health issues. A form of a slave driver would stand over the boys, and to gain obedience, they would kick them and prod them with sticks. In 1832, we started gaining some hope for children when the trade unions argued over the age of children working in factories at the National Trade Unions Convention. There are many reasons against child labor, but long hours, cheap pay, bad working conditions, and children missing school are the biggest issues. New England unions felt it was unhealthy for children to work in factories from morning until night, that it affected their health and well-being as a child. Massachusetts was the first state to set child labor laws declaring that children under the age of 15 working in factories had to attend school at least 3 months out of the year. In 1842, they limited children's workdays to 10 hours a day. In 1881, the American Federation of Labor proposed an argument at the First National Convention for States to ban anyone under the age of 14 from working. In 1883, the New York Labor Union, led by Samuel Gompers, successfully passed a ban on children making cigars in cigar factories. This caused factories to begin to start moving south. In the early 20th century, child labor peaked in the U.S. Children were working in mines, glass factories, home industries, canneries, agriculture, as peddlers, messengers, bootblacks, and newsboys. In 1904, the National Child Labor Committee was formed to try to do away with child labor. Attempts were made in 1924 and 1937 to give the government the authority to regulate child labor, but failed because too many states opposed it. This is a parade in New York City in 1909, where activists were starting to bring attention to child labor issues. The girls in the photos had signs saying, "Please stop child slavery." Louis Wilkes Hine was a child labor activist and photographer. He was hired by the National Child Labor Committee to take photos of children working in bad conditions to bring about awareness to the American people. In 1914, he made this activist poster. He took most of the photos I have shown today. In 1936, the Walsh-Henley Act was passed. Government would no longer purchase goods made by children. In 1938, President Roosevelt signed the Fair Labor Standards Act, setting minimum hours and ages a child could work. Children between 12 and 16 could not be employed unless it was a non-hazardous job and during limited hours. In agricultural jobs with parents' permission, children as young as 12 could work unlimited hours as long as it was not during school hours. A few exceptions were made for child actors and actresses, newspaper delivery children, and children employed by their parents. This chart shows you the U.S. child laws today when it pertains to non-agriculture employment. This chart shows you the U.S. child laws today for children working in agricultural employment.
Here we have 3 U.S. teens working in today's times. Nick and Dusty are working on the grandfather's farm, and Jonathan is assisting programs for best team building.
Unfortunately, child labor still exists today in other countries. Here we see a little girl working on a loom in Morocco and a young boy on a farm in Brazil. This map shows the percentage of child labor that exists today. So you can see that even though the U.S. has restricted child labor, many other countries still have young children working. This concludes my presentation. Here are my credits.